estimate of our population. Yung itanong ko kasi sa mga estudyante ko kung anong gagamitin namin population estimate, NCSO or CIA. Sabi nila, sir, CIA. Mas tama sila. So, assuming mali man yung estimate ng ano, so kung 100 million tayo ngayon, ang ating oil equivalent ng ating pagkain is 14.7 million barrels of oil energy. And you may compute ang implication pag dumami ng dumami. So, we tried to compute the energy requirement for producing corn also. Mabilis ko masyado. Mataas ang hybrid corn kasi mataas ang level ng fertilizer application. Okay? Accounting for 60.7% in production. Okay? Mas mababa yung post-production niya kasi hindi niluluto eh. Pinapakain sa manok. So, yun ang ano. But remember that the cost of production, LDOE, 860 in relation to prices of pork and chicken later on. I also did an energy audit for sugarcane from crop establishment to processing. Okay. So, it's an average of 1,041 liter diesel oil equivalent. No? So, take note, 50% of the energy bill comes from fertilizer. So, pag tumaas na nung tumaas ang presyo ng fertilizer, I really do not know how we can increase further sugar yield. So, anong challenge? Reducing the energy intensiveness of food production system. We need to account or audit the energy at various stages and find the so-called energy hotspots. So, sa sugarcane, we did the value chain analysis in sugar production. So, from crop establishment, so on and so forth. So, we made the more detailed. Hindi ko alam, pag nilagay sa PowerPoint itong figure na ginawa ni Ed na ito, nagugulong ganito. But I'd like to just summarize the two major energy consuming aspect of sugar production. It is in the nitrogen fertilizer. Second is in the holding, especially pag mag-hold ka ng 500 kilometers. This is not for sugarcane. This is for other crops. So, that's why sugarcane, ang recommendation, may mean district tayo 15 kilometers. But there's also pole vaulting, no? As far as Iloilo, Victoria's Mining Company is getting sugarcane. So, yun ang nagpapa-increase ng energy bill, sugar production, holding. Well, reducing the energy bill means we have to reduce the most energy expensive at 2.04 liter diesel oil energy equivalent per kilogram of nitrogen fertilizer. Why it is so energy intensive? Because of the Haber-Bosch process in the nitrogen manufacture, which requires high pressure and high temperature. 1 kilogram of nitrogen is using 1.8 liter diesel oil equivalent. Including holding, later on, when it landed, reaches the Philippines, it's about 2.15 liter diesel oil equivalent. Yun ang so, for sugar production, ito yung ano namin, tinitingnan namin yung energy hotspot sa fertilizer, yung crop establishment, so you prolong the ratoon, then breed and develop varieties that can be retuned, say, 10 times and increase tonnage yield. We're now trying to optimize or stabilize how to get 200 tons cane per hectare. So, meron nang nagta-trust farming, so you can reduce immediately Nitrogen fertilizer application as much as 150 kilogram per hectare in terms of nitrogen requirement, or cutting into half the current fertilizer. Improving the meal efficiency, the sugar recovery. So ito yung Pilipinas, ito yung Brazil. This is the oldest sugar mill in Brazil. Bakit hindi tayo naka-modernize? Again, it's a good balance. Of course, yes, yung balance fertilization na sinasabi natin, IPM, moving into pure organic farming that will reduce the energy bill. So we have already computed that growing rice by organic method was 4 times more energy efficient. Organic farms use less energy, 37%, and therefore organic farms require the least amount of energy to produce a 1 ton of rice. Yes, the food logistics, the transport by way of reducing the energy bill. So what we need is localized production to reduce the food miles, or reduce the transport, packaging, and storing. But we need to address the urban and peri-urban agriculture. So we need to allot food production zones para hindi na masyadong lalayo pa. Kaso hindi these are not considered in our urban settlements planning. This is the challenge. Making food available in urban areas present tremendously high logistic requirements. 2000, 48%, 2005, 55% na yung nasa urban area namin. 2010, ang estimate nila 67%. I do not know now kung proportional increase, dami natin. Highly urbanized na tayo. By their definition of urbanized. So, it's obvious. Railways are the cheaper mode of transport, but what are in place are expressways. Of course, urbanization is land use conversion, so on and so forth. Gagawa natin dyan. Up to now, hindi napapasa yung National Land Use Act. Pasado na sa Congress, but it's waiting for the third and final reading in the Senate. I do not know kung mahagip pa nila yan, considering they're so busy in Senate investigation on 2 major issues. So it has been there. The National Land Use Act, nagsimula yan kay Cory. Aquino na naman ngayon. Hindi pa siguro. Hopefully, meron pang 5 months to go. Election figure na eh. So, hindi ko alam. Yes, my dear friend, the most energy-intensive food item in human diet is meat. Okay? There is very low food conversion to plant to animal. 6 kilogram plant protein is needed to produce 1 kilogram animal protein. 6 kilogram mixed feeds per kilogram live weight of broiler. 4 kilogram feeds per kilogram live weight of pork. 7 kilogram grain, okay, per kilogram beef. By the way, if you are a beef lover, the 1 kilogram beef that you eat is equivalent to the amount of water that you use for shower or taking a bath in a year. Kaya, kung kayo nag-i-enjoy, later on, consider me. In terms of land use, 70% of all agricultural lands, 1.43 billion hectares, are used for pasture and feed production, and 56% of all grains are fed to animals. Increasing affluence is also associated with increasing animal pets. That requires dog food, cat food. We have no data yet on how much food they consume. Matawa si Ami dito.
Kasi may sa Quezon City, yung 4 na pet na ng per household.
Dalawa.
Nakakap.
Nag-increase sila, no? Malakas pa kumain sa isang pamilya. Energy cost. Milk is 5 to 7 megajoule per kilogram. Broiler, 10. Pork, 68. Egg, 2 to 2.25 megajoule per kilogram. Beef, 201.45. Yung converter ko kasi hindi ko pa so I was not able to convert yung megajoule. No? Hindi ko visualize what is megajoule in terms of liter oil equivalent. In our papers, we are using LDOE, liter diesel oil equivalent. From megajoule, you can convert it to calories, and then calories to liter diesel oil equivalent. Feed utilization or protein conversion efficiency, bakit mataas ang ano na? Tingnan niyo yung beef, 5% lamang. Ang pork, 30%. Chicken, 25%. Milk, 40%. Incidentally, Filipinos are fast becoming meat lovers. So, mataas ang ating because of that, nag-increase yung production ng ating chicken, hogs. Incidentally, yun ang dahilan, kaya nag-i-increase din ang enrollment ng animal science. Not crop science. Kasi wala pera dun eh. So this will not provide the basis bakit maganda yung enrollment. So anong option natin? Less and less meat in our diet. But if you prefer to be vegetarian, maraming variations naman. When you say vegetarian, merong lacto-vegetarian. So yung source of protein nila, yung milk. Ovo-vegetarian, egg. Combination, milk, egg, vegetarian. And the pesco-vegetarian, yung isda. Yung vegan, yun ang pure vegetarian. If you are a vegetarian, you only use 4% of the land and 10% of the energy used in foods relative to the meat lovers. So, we Filipinos should eat more vegetables and fruits and less meat to be healthy again. We only consume 30 kilograms, while the optimum is about 140 to 180 kilograms. The Chinese, they claim they are eating up to 210 kilograms, while the Japanese eat something like 120 kilograms. Pero nagbabago na rin ang kanilang consumption pattern ngayon kasi mayaman na sila eh. So yun ang magiging problema. Mahilig na rin sila sa karne ngayon. The Philippines, anong prospect natin? We have 220 million hectares of coastal and marine areas and 1 million hectares of fresh water. Kaya pwede tayong bumalik sa pagiging fish lover, no? And fish are good source of protein, omega-3 fatty acid, polyunsaturated fatty acids, also protein. Incidentally, energy use is related to carbon footprint. Okay? Food is the major source of greenhouse gases, 44 to 57% according to brain agronomists who did this exercise. Okay? Agricultural activities, 11 to 15%. Plant clearing, deforestation, 15 to 18%. Remember, 70% of all lands are devoted for forage, pasture, and feed grain production for our livestock. Okay? 56% of all grains. So take note of that interrelationship. Food processing, packaging, transportation, 15 to 20%. Decomposition of organic waste, 3 to 4%. Okay? So, we did a graph to illustrate that the multiple effects of high oil energy usage. So, oil is the propeller of global warming, climate change. And our food is the major source. Bakit naging major source siya? Kasi sa dami ng tao kumakain, sa dami ng tao na gustong kumain ng karne, so on and so forth. Rice, 850 liters per hectare. So, yung kinakain ninyong rice at a year, kung merong nagkukonsume ka ng 112, of course, yung kababayan medyo mahinang kumain. So, hindi sila nag-generate ng 200 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent of the rice that they eat. The animal sector's contribution to greenhouse gases, yun ang pinakamataas. Livestock rearing is responsible for 18% of greenhouse gas emission, higher share than transport sector. This is the 2006 audit of Stanfield. So, yun ang nila. Carbon dioxide is 9%. So on so forth. Fiala tried to estimate the carbon emission. If you're eating beef, per kilogram, that's 14.8 kilograms CO2. Pigs, or hogs, 3.8. Chicken, 1.1 kilogram. So, for the meat lovers, yun na nga, naglalaway ka na naman dyan. In my case, hindi ko alam bakit sumasakit na ang aking ngipin pag karne ang kinakain ko pa. So indirectly, hindi na ako makakain ng maraming karne. Especially beef. Sakit. Pagkatapos. Anong future ng energy? We're in the transition stage. No? So nandun na yung renewable. No? So, for our houses, solar. Tingnan ninyo yung cost ng solar. So, in relation to other electricity prices. This is Metro Manila. Kailan po na-download ito. So, kung diesel-based island grids, laki. 35 per kilowatt. So, dito, less than 8 pesos. Galing ako sa CDR King kanina. 4,800 yung 100 watts solar panel. Problema, yun lang tinitinda nila, solar panel. Wala silang regulator, wala silang battery. To maintain our lifestyle, yun ang cars for the future. Hindi ka na maglalagay ng fuel, gasoline, or ilalagay mo na lang. So, mag-load ka na lang. So ito yung future. Kasi yung isang estudyante na ito sa akin kanina, Sir, paano ang future namin kung ganyan na? Sabi ko, scarcity is the mother of invention. Don't worry, be happy. It will be our thing soon. So in conclusion, what's the interrelationship of food and energy and carbon footprint? I can state that of the 3 food groups, okay, it's the meat or the protein portion of our diet is the one giving, which is energy intensive, greenhouse gas intensive, or the hotspots. The production and post-production of both direct and indirect energy and the inputs and logistics side. So, from production, anong logical option? Organic farming. But it is a solution which is also a problem. On the food logistics, the long distance hauling, well, sabi ko na nga kanina, problema sa atin, what are in place are expressways, pinabayaan ng railways. So I hope the next president will address this. So we need localized food production. Ang problema, yung human settlement has to be redesigned. So, ano ang dapat maging thrust na naman ngayon ng college agriculture is to emphasize urban and periculture system. Anyway, ang argument ko naman, when you build houses, you will multiply the land, the surface area where you can effect or catch sunlight for crop photosynthesis. Okay? So, yung mga beranda natin, kung merong cleaning vines dyan, patola, upo, kalabasa, okay? O kung ayaw mo nun, passion fruit, may prutas ka. Okay? Sayote. So, yun. Energy use for transport, well, yan naman natin. That's why we're saying enhancing rice self-sufficiency requires that rice sufficiency should be pursued at the municipal level. Para hindi na masyadong nagta-transport. So, we need a major redesigning both our food and energy system. So, anong transition strategy? Farmers adopt regenerative organic methods that build humus, sequester carbon in soils, less use of heavy-boss nitrogen fertilizer, and we're solving climate change rather than exacerbating it. So, yung global warming, climate change, is so much CO2 in the atmosphere, it's a human-induced or it's a human big or whatever, no? Result of human activities. So, pwede rin masolve ng human. Kaso nga lang, how soon we can convince farmers more renewable energy should power farming activities and generated on farms. Reduce the energy needed to transport food by reorganizing food production system, bring producers and consumers closer together, use efficient modes of transportation such as ships, trains, to replace less efficient modes, the trucks and planes. So the main challenge, the end of fossil fuel era requires the change in dietary and consumption patterns. Foods must be grown locally during season that undergo less processing. Shift away from energy, meat-intensive diet towards eating plant-based diet or a vegetative production system. Less fuel available to power agricultural machinery means more farmers are needed. So there is a need to shift the food eating culture of the current generation to food growing culture. I always emphasize this. How can we supply the food requirements? Like in the United States, only 3%, less than 3% grow their own food. But now there's a, they are already pursuing what we call the U-turn. They're trying to produce whatever food they can produce in their doorstep. So, sana ganun din ang maging attitude ng ating mga. Kanina yung estudyante nag-interview sa akin, I asked her, are you growing malunggay sa inyo bakura? Sir, wala. See? Even malunggay, apakadaling itanim. Binibili sa palengke. But for farmers to succeed, current agricultural policies that favor larger scale production for export will need to change in favor of support to small-scale farming, gardening, and agricultural cooperatives. That international, national, regional cooperatives should craft policies in anticipation to the end of fossil fuel-produced foods. Hey, gentlemen, we're still lucky because we have all this God-given gift. We have plenty of sunlight, we still have lands and water. Okay, we have large marine areas. If we love to feed, we have to feed to love. So, yan po. Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat, Dr. Mendoza. Before we open the floor for questions, let's call our director and give a certificate to Dr. Mendoza. So, Dr. Potasio. Our certificate of appreciation.
Muted.
Maraming salamat.
Dito madali sa madali.
Ayan. One, two. Isa pa po. One, two. Okay po.
Salamat.
Sino pa ang unang gusto kong tanong? Dr. Fernandez.
Kasi ko na kanina, mga 50 pesos cost ng howling ng isang bag ng
palay or the cost of hauling or shipping from Isabela of rice?
Yes.
Parang 50 pesos more or less.
Yes, that was in 2008.
2,000.
I don't know. Kung ganyan pa rin ngayon.
Wala lang. Just calculating how much we should add. How much then would be each kilo of rice? If this is the case
50 pesos per bag, that is 1 peso per kilogram.
of the cost of shipping.
Yes.
So, not much.
Kasi nilalagay sa ilalim ng bus lang yun.
And that's white rice.
White rice.
1 peso. 50 plus 1 peso, 51 pesos.
Yes.
Wala lang. I'm just playing with the figures.
Eh kung tumaas pa yung oil, no? Kasi ang nagpapataas pa rin ng cost ng hauling, yung condition ng tawag dito, roads. Okay?
Do you include the
Ah.
cost of FA storage?
Oh, that's another, no? Kung i-store pa yan, no? That's what we call the embedded energy. One of the major reasons why NFA cannot buy more rice is because they have no storage. Ang storage nila, naka-design lang for about 5%. Ewan ko kung kaya pa nila yon considering typhoons, super typhoons, kung na-repair na yung mga kanilang mga storage.
The recent news I read is like for this big typhoon that was
Yes.
supposed to come, you only have 15 days stock.
Yeah.
Nakakatakot.
No, that's why
Limang araw lang pala
That's
yung
why
stock.
they're importing 1.8 million metric tons. And that's precisely the reason why bagsak ang presyo ng palay ngayon. Because the traders are not buying. 13 pesos at 50 centavos sa Isabela, 14 pesos sa Nueva Ecija.
They could have break also the prediction just so justify yung importation.
Yeah, it's part of the news that they say that there are shipments coming from Thailand and Vietnam.
Yes.
So why is not the government putting up more storage houses so that we can increase the production and we can store instead of importing every now and then?
Well, remember, we are spending 65 billion for our conditional cash transfer. Okay? Para i-solve yung problema ng mga mahirap daw natin. Conditional cash transfer. Yeah. Sabi na naman ni Pinoy, kaya wala tayong salary increase during the term of Pinoy. Because of SSL. No? SSL 3 nangyari sa kanya. So, ang laki ng kailangan na budget for the salaries. And that's also the reason why gusto nila puro contractual. Yeah. Regular, ano ba kayo?
Ako po.
Contractual.
Item na po.
Item na. Very good. Okay? So, we do not know what is going on sa budgeting ng gobyerno. Ang point lang, if there's a will, there's a way. Okay? Yes?
There is money.
Well, quick fix. Election year, you need money, you import rice. Yeah. Yes.
This might be a little bit out of the mainstream, but some people now are avoiding rice, not because of the calories, carbohydrate, but more of the reaction of our bodies. Because the rice has this high grains that affect the functioning of our pancreas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like an inhibitor there. And too much of it can actually compromise our health, and yeah, that's why we have diabetes and stuff. And if you factor in what these people, the nutritionists claim or the historians claim, we were not eating rice before. We were just eating rice recently. In fact, our grain diet before was millet. We were eating rice or millet. We were eating more the sprouts.